Hi there. My name is Matt Willis, 25 years experience with people. Lawyer for a bit of that, consulting, and I've done staffing and now retention. I work with a company that's passionate about retention and engagement, Advantage Club, 3 million users, 100 different countries. We deal with the big guys, Accenture and Target, a few people from Mark here today, and then very small companies. So we have 97% client retention. It's because we customize stuff, it's integrated, and everyone out there is going to have specific questions, which I will not talk about today. So feel free to hit us up. We also have a presentation. I'm not going to get to all the content. I'm glad to send you the presentation. All right? So let's get started. Really two things today. One is just building on this momentum, right? Leadership, engagement that we've heard today. We're going to talk about the engagement landscape, and then we're going to talk about creating a recognition culture. What does that mean? Different ways to find out about employee needs today. Then we're going to go new ways to recognize what we're seeing out there as trends, and then the recognition loop. So let's start. For those that all of this you probably know, but just as a synopsis, pre-pandemic, we've got 4 generations now working, so all of a sudden, people are raising their hands, I need more than a paycheck, I want some belonging. We get into this thing, the pandemic, everyone is shuts down, then all of a sudden we start the engines again, and it's pandemonium because it's very hard to get people in the door. And then we have things like the Great Resignation and silent quitting, hybrid workplace, and this all of a sudden HR tech boom. So all this is going on, all right? Now in Q4 and into Q1, all of a sudden we get these things called tech layoffs. So all of a sudden the data, we're moving all these things forward, and all of a sudden we've got some economic insecurity. And we got things like, hey, job security concerns, but we also have survivor syndrome, meaning I work for a tech company, they just laid off someone else, what's going to happen to my job, right? So net engagement's really important today, right? Recognition and engagement. So Lasso is going to help us today. For those that haven't seen it, don't worry about it. If you're comfortable while you're doing it, you're probably doing it wrong. All right, so let's look at some stats around disengaged employees. So what does that mean? Well, we have multiple different large consulting groups, and generally we know that around 32% of US employees are engaged. So what does that mean? We have 50%, 2/3 of the workforce, depending on what study you're looking at, that are not fully engaged. All right, so what happens then? Disengagement, low productivity, right? And some of that is, hey, I'm not sure I'm going to be here or not. Some of that is work from home. Some of that is beyond work from home. It's just the general state of the union right now. And in addition to that, we know that disengagement equals turnover. Microsoft just had their work trend study. 40% of their global workforce, they did some analysis, they're actually critically evaluating their long-term situation. So what does that mean? Hey, if we're not engaging employees, or tracking employees, people are looking for other things. They're not engaged. So how do we engage them? What happens is the converse. What do we get with an engaged employee? Well, it's pretty dramatic, the difference, right? 17% more productivity, sales, customer rates, better absenteeism. We avoid absenteeism. And then we have net, companies are more profitable, right? If we are engaging our employees, if we're tracking that, if we're looking for that feedback. Now, there's a catch, because the catch is we all do surveys. Just show of hands, how many people do employee satisfaction surveys at their organization? Okay, great. So we have some quantitative data, right? And it shows us, and we all get those surveys back, and it says, oh, I want more pay, right? That's always on there. And then we also have some other stuff. But if you dig into the numbers, this is from the AMA, we see a discrepancy sometimes between if you do it with supervisors and employees. And employees, this was number 1 rating, was credit or recognition for the job done. Belonging is way up there. Conversely, job security, and this was February, so it's even going to be stilted today. But it wasn't as much concern, especially entry-level employees. Hey, I can go get a job doing what I'm doing somewhere else. But supervisors, that was a big concern. So there's a discrepancy in what the C-level is saying in terms, do we do recognition? Sure. Another way to think of this is, show of hands, how many people recognize their employees? Yeah, most 90%. That's consistent. Now, if I go talk to your frontline employees and I say, hey, how many feel they've been adequately recognized? That's a different story, right? Or 65% say, hey, I haven't received any recognition. And then us as manager or HR leaders, senior leaders are saying, of course you've been recognized. We did an event and da-da-da-da. We got to think, what from the employee perspective are those needs, for recognition? Now throw in hybrid. Quick stat, we were in Chicago a couple weeks ago. The CHRO from CBRE, one of the biggest commercial real estate firms in the world, said, they asked a couple questions. How many people are working from home today? And she said, well, actually, pre-pandemic, there was only about 65-70% that were working in the office. So we'd already started that trend. But she said productivity, they track productivity and wellness. Productivity and wellness was about 70% pre-pandemic. Go to post-pandemic, and this is not frontline employees or in the retail stores, right? This is just people that had an option. She said productivity stayed the same. So work from home, we're not seeing a big drop in productivity. But wellness, it's dropped 50%. 70% of people had some form of employee wellness, satisfaction, but we lost that human connection, right? So we're down to 38, 39, 40%. I mean, you just heard it, right? Wellness, mindfulness. It's a real crisis. All right, so what are we going to do? Two options. Press the panic button, panic and snooze. So we like to think of this as a map, or this is really, we don't have an original thought. We're just compiling what's working out there, right? And it's this idea of, hey, look at how do we get employee needs? There's the quantitative, there's the satisfaction, but what else? Then we need to expand opportunities to recognize people, to create that sense of belonging. Then we celebrate, and then we're going to move into the recognition. You got to have some analytics around this so you can make some decisions. All right. How many people have seen Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Some form or fashion, okay. So let's talk about how that relates to our employees. Okay, first level, that would be independent contractor, part-time employee, and we're paying hourly. Okay, we're going to give them a paycheck. Is there a lot of engagement? No. Is there a lot of motivation for your company? No. As we go up, let's say we have frontline employee, hourly employee, but hey, we do some onboarding, or we do some training, or we create a little bit of community. Little more sense of belonging. I actually know who I'm working for. Motivation goes a little bit up. And you see how this works. The more we create this sense of belonging, this sense of need that is in line with what the employee wants, the more motivation we get out of them, right? Makes sense. Boy, I love meeting people's moms. It's like reading an instruction manual on why they're nuts. Okay, so we talked about the quantitative. Let's talk about the qualitative. Now, this is a whole session that we could do all day long. I'm just going to give you the bullets, all right? We've already heard some bullets today. When we look at the people aspect of how do we find out employee needs, that's what we're trying to find out in this crazy world. Employee resource groups, just show of hands how many employee resource group people have employee resource group. Okay, awesome. How many people don't know what employee resource group even means? A few of those too. So this idea is creating a community, right? Let's pick diversity. Very important topic. We heard about D&I today. You create a group, right? And we get people involved with some action step. The other side of that is just creating communities. So all sorts of communities, more type of communities with people from different departments, etc. Virtual events. And then, of course, we see some digitization, recognition, engagement, and those communities. So what we do for some of our clients is, hey, there's engagement events, but FIFA World Cup, let's automate that. let's put everyone on a channel that they use on their app or Slack or Teams so that they're engaged. Volunteering events, let's digitize that. It creates a community and that sense of belonging. The other thing we're seeing is just management training. Again, huge topic. What we're seeing is a few practice tips. How do you find employee needs? Spend more time with the employee. Ask the questions, right? So that goes to leadership training, management training, additional one-on-ones. And it's not the one-on-ones that we're used to. We don't have enough people. We all have a bandwidth problem, so one-on-ones get cut short. It should be the opposite today. We've got to spend some time with the employee, say, hey, how are you doing? What do you want to be doing? That could be a separate one-on-one, right? Some people are doing, we've adopted once a month, hey, we're going to have a one-on-one, but we're not talking about work, right? Just a development one-on-one. So we're seeing more of that. The other is this social interaction. So what we're seeing is we just talked to COO at Luminary. It's a big media company. And she says first 5 minutes, she doesn't show up to the meetings. It's just social time, right? People need that interaction. So we create it as HR professionals or for our managers. We teach them, how do you create some more opportunity for socialization, more opportunity to get those needs. And then we have all this crazy stuff going on, so we've got to over-communicate. We won't spend a lot of time, but you get it. That's important not only for people silent quitting, silent hiring, layoffs, survivor syndrome, etc. All right, so what are the growing predictors of job satisfaction? Growing predictors are 6 big ones that keep bubbling up that weren't there 10, 15 years ago. Some are there, some are new. Flexibility and belief in the company. The next is the recognition and that sense of belonging. And then we've got responsibility and the opportunity for growth. And it's a circle, right? All these are important. But it's keeping honest with our employees, getting that feedback, and then pivoting into these areas. So new checklist, culture, autonomy, growth opportunities, flexibility, purpose, recognition, right? We get it. We get it. It's how do you execute it? How do you execute it? How do you execute upon it? Okay, so let's go real quick. We see 2 other things that are going on. One is expanded avenues for recognition. What does this mean? It means that traditionally we had, hey, real quick, show of hands, anniversaries. Do you do work anniversary recognition? Great, most people do that. How many people do birthdays, just out of curiosity? Okay, great. We're seeing an expansion of recognition opportunities. So what does that mean? Service markers. 30 days in, you get your onboarding done, there's a certificate, and there's some recognition, and it's celebrated, right? Either within the team or the division or the whole company. Other different service markers. Birthdays, anniversaries, we got groups and committees. That committee on diversity, they have an event. We celebrate that. That committee that is foodies, and they've created a committee, and they have once a month a cooking, we celebrate that. So we're creating more opportunities for recognition. Then we have activity-driven, not just sales, not just quarterly sales, right? But different departments celebrating that activity. And then we've got celebratory gifting, the idea that, hey, I can go peer-to-peer, and I can nominate someone for a reward, or I can simply give out a reward, or I can volunteer. I can send it to a charity. So we're seeing all this explosion in new ways to recognize. Okay, how about rewards? Should we do rewards? Yes, you should do some rewards. We're seeing 3x the impact if you do rewards along with appreciation. And what's the difference? All the physical stuff is out. The new stuff in is the flexible rewards, the online team building and communities, the wellness points with flexible redemption. And so some of our clients use, hey, the wellness points, but that also can go for the learning and development. That also can go towards physical activity, mindfulness. We're seeing more of that, but it's flexible for the employee. And then we have the online perks and benefits. Okay, we're in closing stretch here. Increasing in that engagement. So really the goal of this, and it doesn't matter if you are small corporation, 27 people or tens of thousands, you're working in a division or a department or a specific country, there's got to be some form of getting executive buy-in. This is the time. We are in a wonderfully great opportunity as senior HR leaders, right? And as business unit managers to get things done right now. Because when you look at the macroeconomics, it's scary. It's at the C-level, it's at the board of directors level, right? And we start giving the numbers, and half of my job is simply connecting retention to a tool or connecting engagement to a tool, right? Showing the metrics. Now is a time that we can push forward some of that great stuff we're doing with leadership and management and retention and technology. So you got to get the exec buy-in. Once you get the exec buy-in, it's training managers and encouraging that employee feedback. We're doing lots of stuff right now, and you've already heard a couple things. Retraining is really what's happening. Teaching empathy, right? Teaching how to listen. Teaching how to spend some additional time on the one-on-ones, not just your activity, but also, hey, what's in it for them, and listening. So we've got to do that. And then encouraging feedback, all right? Feedback is an important one. And so we're seeing this with some of our the biggest and brightest brands that don't do this well. Feedback is making sure that, hey, what should we do for an engagement event? What would you like to do? Or how would you like to be appreciated? Or what fun events could we do next quarter? And getting that information. And that in of itself becomes a real force multiplier. Next is keeping things fresh. And this is a tough one because some of our job is selling up as well as selling down, right? And selling sideways. But we got to keep these things fresh. So what do? Best way to do this is steal. Best way to do this is just, hey, Matt, what's someone else doing in this industry, like-sized company? I need 5 ideas. Great. That's what we're doing. But we're seeing an effort. You've got to create the opportunity for people to get engaged. Not everyone's going to be engaged, but if the opportunity is there, you'd be surprised, and especially if we know they want to be engaged in some form or fashion. And then we recognize, measure everything. We do custom reports. We do analytics. You all have some form, right, of analytics that really resonate, and we double down on those efforts. And so what we're seeing in terms of the recognition more and measurement is we're seeing not only like utilization and redemption and appreciation and who's appreciating, we're now spending time on which management and what team has the most appreciation and who's doing events and how do we need to do retraining. So you can kind of think about, hey, what moves the needle? Let's set up those reports and let's move forward with that. So that's how we do the recognition loop. All right, so what's the goal? Engagement. I'm going to end up with here. We just have 2 slides. I'm not going to get into all this. You can get the presentation. Lasso, what I want to highlight is let others know they matter. Let others know they matter. That's what we're talking about today. It doesn't matter how long you've been with the organization, and those that have been longer with the organization may need more love, right, than your brand new employees. And the second is this idea that let ideas come from everywhere, encouraging that feedback loop, all right? So I'll close up here. To win the marketplace, you must first win the workplace. I'm speaking to the choir here, right? Speaking to the choir here, but now is really a unique historical opportunity for us to get some stuff done. It's a scary time. There's a lot of challenges ahead, but use that. Tie that to some metrics, because if you do that, you will. This is a time to separate from competitors. Those that do this well, in fact, you are at day 1, pat yourself on the back, you're ahead of your competitors, right? You're doing something. And those that don't, it's going to be a bigger and bigger and bigger discrepancy, and that retention and engagement is going to get a lot worse for those that aren't recognizing it. So thank you for the time, and happy to be here with you all today.